Welcome to the cityCURRENT Show. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta. We're honored to bring you inspiring individuals and organizations making an impact and leading the charge in making a difference in our community and around the world. And today we're stepping into the world of home renovation and interior design with Gabriella Milgrom. With over 12 years of experience in the construction industry, Gabriella has been on a mission to empower people to create their dream home without sacrificing their time, money, or sanity. She navigates the fine line between design vision boards and the tangible reality of building, ensuring each project comes to life just as imagined. So prepare to decode the design myths, avoid renovation mistakes, and gain the confidence to bring your dream home to life. Gabriella, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, me too. I'm so excited to talk to you. Can you first tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into the field of home renovation and interior design?
Yes. So my background, I have a Bachelor of Interior Design, which I started when I was about 22, I believe. But prior to that, when I was 16, I always had this grand idea that I was going to be an interior designer. I didn't 100% know what that was at the time, but I was like, this is what I want to do. And I ended up going in my college years to Europe on a broad program where we studied architecture and design in Europe. And that's when it was like, yes, this is my dream. I want to create functional and beautiful spaces. So I went to university, graduated, God, eons ago at this point, and then ended up in a role where it was both project management and interior design. And it's kind of when both sides of my brain just meshed and clicked, and it all kind of came together.
Very cool. Now you talk about a lot about on your social media about taking not only just your vision board, but making it into a reality. And so many of us have Pinterest boards and bookmarked sites and links and photos in our phone of these places that we want to have to make us feel calm and comfortable in our own spaces. But why do you believe a successful design project is more about strategy than it is vision?
So don't get me wrong, I have a plethora of Pinterest boards myself. I am a pinner.
Okay, good.
It's not saying that you can't. It's understanding what you're actually looking for to be able to inform that design. And often what ends up happening is when we get really, really hyper-focused on just what it looks like, and we're only starting with that vision board, and we just create all of these images, and then we make either a folder or we create like a layout, and we're like, this is what our room's going to look like. We haven't actually figured out what it is that we're trying to solve. So when we parse it backwards and we start looking at what's wrong with the space or what's not working, what we don't like, and we start answering those critical questions, then we're able to design more successfully because we're finding solutions in the design process or that sourcing process that then inform what it is that we're trying to do, rather than just going, oh my God, I love all these beautiful pictures, taking this amalgamation of images and then plunking it into a room and expecting it to work.
I love that you talk about that because I'm thinking about many of us are like great curators of the great design and things that we want to see, but then we're not really great at implementing them. And having someone like yourself come along that process would make it much more successful in making that happen. A lot of the times I also notice, I don't know if it's just myself or maybe my extended family and friends that do the same thing, but I like to look at like our guest bathroom, for example. I was staring at the builder grade mirror, that big square rectangle mirror that sits there and it's glued on. And I was like, enough is enough. I want the round mirror, and I have a vision. It's been saved on my Pinterest. I'm going to take it off. Well, I take off the mirror and now I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, I'm not ready to put up the other one yet. So a lot of times I feel like many of us sort of like take that first step and then we go, uh-oh, now what? And so for listeners who aren't designers, how can we plan out and figure out the design details for our dream home in a way that is applicable to not only our lifestyle, our time management, but also with working with a professional like yourself along the way?
So really what it comes down to at the very beginning, and it's two different ways of looking at it. So if you're going to be taking on a project entirely by yourself, either from the design as well as the execution, it's a little bit more of a process than people actually understand. And that's where you jump into where you take off your mirror and then, you've ripped off some of your drywall and you're going, oh crap, how do I actually fix this? And it snowballs and it turns into a bigger project than what you intended, right? So that's typically what ends up happening. And don't get me wrong, I do that myself. I just redid my office, and when I ripped off the wallpaper that was on there, it completely ruined the drywall. So it happens to all of us. But sometimes when we don't think about those little tiny risks and those little tiny kind of hiccups that can happen, we don't actually plan and forecast well enough. So part of it comes down to when you're in that design process, and let's take your bathroom, for example, and you're saying, this is what I want to do in my bathroom. I want that round mirror. Maybe I want to update my fixtures. The countertop's fine, but a new coat of paint, it needs a little bit more accessorizing. And maybe we're going to retile the shower. I have no idea, throwing that out there. So then you're taking and you're going into Pinterest, or you're going into Instagram, and you're getting all of these inspiration images. And often what happens is the images aren't necessarily focused in, they're broad scope images. So then we're looking at all these competing thought processes, and we're getting overwhelmed in terms of what's actually going to work. What can we put into the space, and what do we really need to do, and how do we need to do it? And that comes from going first into images versus first looking at what it is that we're trying to do. So if instead of immediately going into image sourcing, we first go into the bathroom and we make a list of what's bothering us, what's not working, what are our key priorities in that space, we can more effectively actually keyword search. So we're finding images that hit that problem to begin with, rather than items that are just very broad scoped image based. So if the problems in your bathroom were, say, your lighting is really poor, your showers from the 80s, which is my bathrooms, and the tile is horrible, but you don't want to rip the entire thing out and you're looking for more kind of like Band-Aid intermediate decisions. If we know that's what we're trying to do, then we can keyword search more effectively. So rather than like new modern bathrooms, we can search for, say, bathrooms with peel and stick tile, or bathrooms that were with like new plumbing fixtures. And then you're putting in those specific search terms, which then allow images to come up more successfully. And then when you still get large scope images, like bathroom images of full washrooms, but then instead of just looking at everything as a full image, we go in and we start to crop them. And we start to crop the images based on what it is specifically that we're liking of those spaces. And we put it into a board, and we start to look at how we hit all those problems. Did I find a solution for my poor lighting? Did I find a solution for my floor that needs to be fixed? Did I figure out organization and maybe a paint color or a wallpaper? Did I fix that problem with the tile? Rather than getting overwhelmed and overloaded, looking at all of these images as a whole to begin with and not knowing where it is that we're going to put it.
I love thinking about it differently like that, because you really are taking a step back and going, okay, yes, you can curate these beautiful full images of a bathroom remodel, but then you're not really doing yourself justice in the problem areas that you're trying to solve. So going in first, before I pulled off that mirror, I should have took my phone or a notebook and said, okay, what are the problems that I'm having? Why does this mirror not work for our bathroom? Of course, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but what are some of the other things that I would like to see? So those are some really great tips that our listeners can use to really think about it themselves, take a step back, and then go, okay, maybe next step is hiring a professional, a contractor. So let's talk a little bit about contractors and like what that process is like. Can you share some of the contractor red flags our listeners should be aware of and sort of avoid?
There are a few of them, and it really depends on what it is that you're trying to do. So if your project is smaller, and you are looking to get a contractor to come in and give you a price on what it is that you're doing, the biggest thing that I can recommend, and this isn't a red flag, but this is something that I very much state needs to be done, is to have laid out a list of what it is that you want work done, and to have some kind of a design package created that you can provide to get pricing on. So if you're going to multiple contractors, you're able to compare apples to apples. So that's step one. Because what often ends up happening when we're going to contractors and we're bringing them in through our houses and we're saying, okay, well, I've got this bathroom and these things need to get done. And they're looking at the space, they're just making a mental list of all of these things. So then you're going to get a price. And unless you ask for a breakdown, you're just going to get a ballpark price. And then you're not going to be able to know, is his price high or is his price reasonable? So that's the first step, is to really to nail that in terms of what you're providing to your actual contractors or your suppliers, so that you know that they're comparable. But for red flags, anytime a contractor places urgency on you to proceed, it's typically a red flag. So if they come in and they say to you, yes, I have a spot, but in order to be able to secure you, I need a 50% upfront and I need it right now, that is a red flag. If they come to you and they say, I need you to pay me X amount of money in order to go get materials, and I need that right now, and we haven't even signed a contract, that is a red flag. Yes, contractors are not meant to be banks, but if they are asking for money up front in order to then go purchase products for your space, and you haven't even signed anything, or they don't even have the capital funds to be able to float, say, $3,000 of tile, that is a little bit questionable. Because yes, they shouldn't be your bank, but you should also get the product on site to your house before you pay them back. Because I've even had experiences where they've walked away and you're like, oh, well, I should have known better. Other things is contractors that don't actually provide contracts. So they'll give you a quote and they'll say, this is how much it's going to be. And then they act like that quote is a contract. That is not a contract. That is basically a purchase order that says, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and it should list out what it is that they're going to do for this amount of sum. That's not a contract. That is a purchase order. A contract has way more information involved in it. It has, what are the terms of the conditions? How are you paying them? When are they expecting payment? What are their taxes? What are their insurance requirements? What are your insurance requirements? What's going to happen if there's a dispute? What is the cost of percentage upcharge for change orders? What happens with the lien period? All of these different things are in contracts. And if you don't actually get a contract, you have nothing to stand on. So a lot of them, especially if they aren't licensed or they're not insured and they're not bondable, they're smaller kind of companies, they don't want to invest in contracts. They don't want to invest in that process. So they're not going to come up front and say, oh, I have this. So then that due diligence falls on you. And there are agencies out there that have already pre-vetted contracts. In Canada, they're called CCDCs, and I think they're in the US as well. There's multiple different brands depending upon how you're getting the contract or the project priced, but those are pre-vetted, all the legal mumbo jumbo jargon that you need in them that are going to cover your butt. So then you can say, okay, you don't want to give me a contract on your own, I'm going to present this one. And often when you come back at them and you say, I want a contract and I want it signed and I want it in this firm way, it will actually weed out a lot of those contractors that are on the less professional side that don't want to deal with you and that are actually going to end up causing more trouble than good.
What does it look like working with you when it comes to full service design and management? You've got some great online workshops. Talk about what it's like to work with Gabriella.
So there's two different avenues to work with me. One is with me as my interior design company, which is Gingy Design Group, and we only provide full service design and management. So that is either for renovations, new builds, or large scale remodels, where we are brought in basically to be the umbrella factor. So we are the person that knows the project in and out. We help you coordinate all of the contractors, any other consultants you might need, depending upon how large your project is. We are that person that every piece of information is fielding to. So you don't get, 2,000 emails in the middle of the night. You get to live your life. We coordinate the design, we manage the execution, and we coordinate all those aspects for you. Now, it depends upon where you are, as well as depending upon if you want to be more involved. That's not always the best option for people. So we do also have another section, which is working with me under GabriellaMilgrom.co, which is where I teach you how to basically do what it is that I do. So I have had a workshop that just went through, which was on nurseries, designing and executing that dream nursery for yourself, because I myself am pregnant. So I was like, I'm going to teach people how to do it so that it makes sense, on time, on budget, it design all worked out, and you had all that checklist so that you knew that you were creating the right space for your newborn. And I also have a workshop. It's a free challenge that's coming up, and that is happening in the fall, and it's called House to Home. And that one is a bit more in depth. It's 3 weeks, and it is going to lay out all the processes, the 6 steps that you need to take in order to end up with a full design package for you that is going to work. Everything's been sourced, it's going to fit, it's going to work together. It gives you something, which is that package that I was talking about, that's something that you can give to people and know that you are getting priced accurately and fairly, and that their space is going to all tie together.
What a great asset for those that are wanting to create their dream home without sacrificing so much of their sanity, for you to be able to come in and say, here's what you can do to have everything in line to be able to create this space that's comfortable for you to thrive is fantastic. What puts a smile on your face when you look at the work that you're able to do for so many clients, both residential and commercially, to create their dream space?
For me, it's always about getting them to go deeper. So I have to find a lot of the time when you're asking those questions and you're probing, everything's a little surface level. So you're asking them, you're like, well, what do you want in your dining room space? Or how does this bedroom need to work for you? Or a nursery, for example. And typically the answer is, well, I want it to be pretty and I want it to look like this and all these types of things. And when we probe deeper and we start asking, okay, well, what's not working, or how does this need to actually work for you? How do you actually live? And you start to really get to know your clients, and you start to observe them and really know how they need to live and interact in the space and what their priorities and those things that bring them joy. You're more able to sit there and to design spaces for them that are effectively, or to teach them how to design those spaces so that it's not just something that's pretty. And yes, it is pretty. And we've worked towards pulling all of those aspects and key drivers together that make everything work so that it all comes together and it looks like a designer did it, but you did it yourself. But it is solving all of those problems. It is creating that environment that feels welcoming. It feels inviting. It brings a smile to your face because you know that it all works how it needs to work. That for me is really what brings a smile to my face.
That's great. And that's problem solving design. And that at the forefront, like that solves so many problems with your mental health in a space to be able to thrive in your personal life, but also if you're working from home, or even your professional life and how you show up in your space at work. So where can people go to learn more about you one more time and your work?
Yes, so website is, and social on Instagram are GabriellaMilgrom.co, and that's MILGROM.co. And that basically has all the information in terms of upcoming workshops, upcoming challenges, other ways to work with me. It's got my Savvy Designer blog on there, which has written as well as YouTube videos that really deep dive into more detail on kind of what's working, what's not working, how to more effectively design your spaces, and really all those little project management design tips that you need to know, along with, fun roundups and collections all there for you.
Well, Gabriella Milgrom, thank you so much for coming on our show and helping so many people and businesses realize their dream spaces to thrive. Gabriella, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew.